In the heart of Springfield, Missouri, a seemingly ordinary family harbored a secret as sinister as it was unimaginable. Behind closed doors, smiles masked tension, love concealed lies, and a trusted bond dissolved into betrayal. For the Stott family, the poison wasn't just metaphorical, it was real. As family members fell ill, one by one, their tragic deaths were attributed to natural causes, until a chilling revelation exposed a web of deceit and murder. A mother's twisted motives and a daughter's shocking role would stun an entire community and leave a nation asking, how could this happen? Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Grim Files. Tonight, we uncover the truth behind the Stott family murders, also known as the Antifreeze murders, a case of calculated murder, deadly ambition, and the darkness that can dwell in even the closest of relationships. The Stott family murders case, also known as the Antifreeze murders, is one of the most chilling tales of betrayal in recent history. Over the course of 5 months in 2012, Diane Stott and her daughter, Rachel Stott, orchestrated a deadly plan to eliminate their own family members. Using antifreeze purchased online, they exploited a critical loophole, ensuring the poison lacked the bittering agent typically added to make it detectable. This calculated choice revealed a level of premeditation that shocked investigators and the nation alike. The first victim was Mark Stott, Diane's husband. A devoted father and musician, Mark's sudden and unexplained death was attributed to natural causes. Behind closed doors, however, his death marked the beginning of a sinister campaign. 5 months later, Diane's 26-year-old son, Sean Stott, became the next target. Sean, who was autistic, succumbed to the same toxic substance. His death, like his father's, went unquestioned, a tragic coincidence, or so it seemed. The third victim, 24-year-old Sarah Stott, barely survived the ordeal. Poisoned with the same antifreeze, she was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, clinging to life. While Sarah eventually recovered, the damage was profound, leaving her with long-term physical and neurological impairments. It was Sarah's survival that unraveled the plot, exposing the horrific truth that her mother and sister had conspired to murder their own family members. Diane Stott's cold rationalizations for the murders were as shocking as the crimes themselves. She referred to her family members as burdens, and justified her actions with chilling detachment. Rachel, who had participated fully in the crimes, later admitted her role in court, providing key testimony against her mother. In 2016, Diane Stott was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rachel, after pleading guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for her cooperation, was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Together, their actions tore apart their family and left a community reeling from the betrayal and loss. The Stott family murders remain a stark reminder of how darkness can fester even within the closest of bonds, and how the pursuit of justice can bring to light even the most hidden of crimes. Diane and Mark Stott were a married couple living in a modest home in Springfield, Missouri with 4 children, Sean Stott, age 26, Sarah Stott, age 24, Rachel Stott, age 22, and another daughter, aged 9. The Stott children had varying special needs, with Sean being on the autism spectrum and still living at home, and the 9-year-old girl, then a 4th-grade student, having learning disabilities. In addition, Sarah Stott, a university graduate, had incurred a high amount of student loan debt and was also living at home with her parents. Diane favored Rachel over the other siblings, and would routinely make a habit of praising Rachel and uploading photos of her onto social media. The family was musically talented and enjoyed religious-themed contemporary music. Diane was a church organist and trained nurse, while Mark was the lead singer and guitarist of a local blues band called Messing with Destiny. Mark brought in minimal income, sometimes taking odd jobs related to the band for extra earnings, and Diane was the main source of income for the family, which Rachel revealed was one of the motives for his death. Diane and Rachel, after being arrested for the murders, claimed that the targeted family members were burdens on them. Diane alleged that Mark was lazy, would throw objects when angry, and that by the point of killing him, she hated his guts. She claimed that Sean was worse than a pest. as he was always in the home and had trouble socializing with people due to his autism, leading her to kill him as well, although Rachel claimed that she initially had felt that her brother's death was unfair, arguing that her mother should have placed Sean in assisted living instead. The murders of Mark and Sean Stodd occurred within 5 months of each other. Both victims were found with a suspicious ring of blood around their mouths, but the deaths were not investigated any further, owing in part to Mark's lifestyle, which included alcohol consumption on a regular basis. Both bodies were cremated. Diane went further when she considered killing Sarah as well, owing to her not wanting to pay Sarah's student debt. The 24-year-old was poisoned, then later taken to a hospital by Diane because, according to Diane, she did not want the house to smell bad if Sarah died in it. By that point, Diane had used Mark's $20,000 life insurance policy to move the family into another house with more space. Rachel was also bothered by the prospect of Sarah dying in the house, because she had moved into the room where Sean had died, and claimed that it was unsettling to her. Sarah was admitted in critical condition, with organ failure and neurological damage presenting. An anonymous tip, later revealed to be from the Stodd family's local church pastor, alerted police to the deaths of Mark and Sean Stodd possibly being connected with Sarah's acute symptoms. Multiple people who knew the Stodds had observed that Diane was not expressing any grief for the loss of Mark and Sean. Instead, Diane frequented the social media platform Facebook and appeared aloof about the deaths. Family relative Michael Stodd revealed that there had not been any formal services to commemorate Sean, and that he had only been informed of Sean's passing after another relative had discovered it. Rob Mancuso of Messing with Destiny recalled that Diane was behaving like she was hosting a party. There was no sadness. I thought it was just her way of grieving. When police investigated the case, Diane had been planning a future vacation to Florida and was still residing with Rachel in the house where Sean had died and Sarah had fallen ill. Diane revealed that she and Rachel had poisoned their family members with antifreeze. They had sneaked the substance into sports drinks that Mark regularly consumed, as well as into Sean's favorite soda pop, and had specifically bought it online so as to ensure that there was no noticeable taste to it when hidden. Unlike most antifreeze sold commercially for the general public, the antifreeze purchased by Diane and Rachel lacked an added bittering agent that would have left a foul taste to anything poisoned by it. A note was discovered in Rachel's purse, on which Rachel had written a bizarre poem that read, "Only the quiet ones will be left, my mother, my little sister, and me." A hidden diary kept by Rachel revealed that Rachel herself had been involved directly with the murders, and that she had been aware of Mark's impending poisoning at least 2 months beforehand. Rachel and Diane also admitted that the remaining daughter, the youngest, was to be poisoned after Sarah's death because of the burden of her learning disabilities. Rachel Stodd pleaded guilty in May 2015 to 2 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree assault. Her mother, Diane Stodd, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder in January 2016 and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Both Rachel and Diane have since appealed to vacate their pleas, with Rachel arguing, "When lawyers were appointed, my fear of men was not accommodated, leading to miscommunication, coercion, and mental duress. Being in an interview room alone with a male detective was like being flayed alive." The Stodd family murders stand out not only for the cold and calculated manner in which they were executed but also for the psychological underpinnings that drove Diane and Rachel Stodd to commit such heinous acts. Analyzing their behavior reveals a disturbing blend of psychological disorders, emotional detachment, and toxic family dynamics that culminated in an unthinkable betrayal. As we know, at the heart of these crimes was Diane Stodd, a mother whose psyche seemed to embody traits often associated with narcissistic personality disorder and psychopathy. These include an inflated sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy, and a calculating approach to problem-solving. Her statements, such as referring to her family members as burdens, suggest a dehumanizing view of her husband and children, reducing them to obstacles to be eliminated rather than individuals to be loved and protected. Diane's decision to use antifreeze, a methodical and deliberate choice, indicates premeditation and a lack of remorse. The purchase of antifreeze lacking a bittering agent underscores her meticulous nature, showing that she was not only planning the murders but also ensuring their success with minimal suspicion. This clinical detachment from the gravity of her actions aligns with psychopathic tendencies, including a callous disregard for the well-being of others. Her motivations, particularly financial strain and resentment toward her family members' perceived inadequacies, reveal a profound sense of entitlement. Mark was deemed lazy for not contributing enough income. Sean was viewed as a pest due to his autism, and Sarah's student debt was seen as an inconvenience. Such rationalizations suggest a distorted moral framework where Diane's needs and desires justify murder. Her ability to compartmentalize these actions, showing no grief or guilt, is chilling evidence of her emotional disconnect. Rachel's involvement introduces a layer of complexity to the psychological dynamics of the case. Unlike her mother, Rachel's actions appear to have been driven more by loyalty and dependence than by personal ambition or malice. As the favored child, Rachel likely experienced a disproportionate sense of validation and approval from Diane, which may have created a toxic bond characterized by enmeshment and control. Rachel's diary entries and her eerie poem, "Only the quiet ones will be left," provide insight into her inner world. They suggest a degree of internal conflict and awareness of the immorality of her actions, yet they also reveal her acceptance of Diane's worldview. This cognitive dissonance, knowing her actions were wrong but rationalizing them through her mother's influence, points to the power of Diane's manipulation and Rachel's psychological dependence. Her statements during the trial, where she mentioned discomfort with her brother's death and fear of men in the justice system, further illustrate her emotional vulnerability and susceptibility to external influence. While Rachel was an active participant in the murders, her role appears to be that of an accomplice acting under Diane's dominant influence rather than an equal conspirator with autonomous motives. The family environment in the Stott household was marked by favoritism, emotional neglect, and an imbalance of power. Diane's clear favoritism toward Rachel likely created resentment among the other children and reinforced Rachel's sense of specialness and entitlement. This dynamic also enabled Diane to manipulate Rachel more effectively, as Rachel may have felt a unique pressure to meet her mother's expectations or maintain her position as the favored child. The descriptions of Diane's relationships with her other children, particularly Sean and Sarah, highlight a profound lack of maternal instinct or emotional connection. Sean, as a child with autism, required additional care and attention, needs that Diane perceived as burdensome. Sarah, despite her academic achievements, was reduced to a liability due to her student loan debt. This transactional view of her children, where their worth was measured by their utility or impact on Diane's life, underscores her deeply narcissistic tendencies. Both Diane and Rachel displayed an alarming lack of remorse throughout the investigation and trial. Diane's rationale for the murders, framing her husband and children as obstacles to her happiness, demonstrates a distorted sense of morality. In her mind, eliminating her family members was not only acceptable but necessary for her own well-being. This ends justify the means mentality is a hallmark of psychopathic reasoning. Rachel, on the other hand, exhibited more subtle signs of internal conflict. Her cooperation with law enforcement and eventual testimony against her mother suggested that she recognized the wrongness of her actions, even if she did not act on this awareness at the time. Her plea for leniency, citing her fear of male authority figures, also reveals a deeper psychological fragility, possibly stemming from years of manipulation and emotional abuse by Diane. The Stott family's outwardly normal appearance, a middle-class family with ties to their church and community, hides the dysfunction and emotional isolation that likely contributed to the crimes. Diane's role as the primary breadwinner and her resentment of this responsibility reflect societal pressures and expectations that may have exacerbated her feelings of inadequacy and frustration. Additionally, the lack of external intervention, despite clear red flags such as Diane's aloof behavior and the suspicious circumstances of the deaths, highlights a failure of the social safety net to identify and address familial abuse. The choice of antifreeze as the murder weapon is psychologically significant. Unlike more overt methods of killing, poisoning allows the perpetrator to maintain a facade of normalcy while inflicting harm covertly. This aligns with Diane's calculated and detached approach to the murders. The absence of a bittering agent, a deliberate choice to avoid detection, further illustrates her meticulous and unemotional planning. For Rachel, the use of antifreeze may have represented a way to distance herself psychologically from the act of killing, as the method required no direct confrontation or violence. The psychological toll of these crimes extends far beyond the perpetrators. For Sarah, surviving the poisoning meant enduring lifelong physical and neurological impairments, as well as grappling with the emotional trauma of being betrayed by her own mother and sister. Her resilience, as reflected in her courtroom statement, speaks to her strength but also underscores the lasting scars left by such profound betrayal. For the youngest Staud sibling, spared only by the intervention of law enforcement, the impact of losing her family and being placed in foster care is likely profound. The trauma of growing up with the knowledge of her mother and sister's actions will undoubtedly shape her emotional and psychological development. It is unclear what happened to the 9-year-old daughter after the arrest of Diane and Rachel. At that time a 4th-grade student and minor child, she had not yet been poisoned by her mother or sister. The girl, whose new name has not been identified by news sources due to her age, was placed in foster care. Sarah Staud survived but suffered severe organ damage and neurological damage as a result of the antifreeze. Her symptoms, initially thought to be flu-like, were later revealed to be caused by the poisoning. Sarah maintains a Facebook profile with information about the murder case, as well as a profile banner photo of her father performing in Messing with Destiny. Sarah was given the opportunity to read the following statement in court. "I prefer to be a survivor than a victim. I forgive my mom for what she did to me. But she not only took away my dad and brother, but she took away my lifestyle, livelihood, and my independence." Sarah, who had been on the dean's list during her years in university, was said by Greene County prosecuting attorney Dan Patterson to require a guardian and living in an assisted living facility, due to the effects of the poison on her body and mental state. The public and media expressed disgust over Diane's favoritism towards Rachel, as well as her view of her disabled children as burdens. In particular, the focus was Rachel's attitude towards the murders. Rachel had written in her diary, prior to her father's death, "It's sad when I realized how my father would pass on in the next 2 months. Sean, my brother, will move on shortly after. It will be tough getting used to the changes, but everything will work out." After Sean's murder, Rachel posted a selfie on Facebook of herself sitting cross-legged and smiling, with a post that read, "Don't think I've seen Mom, Diane, so chilled out like this in a long time." The case was covered extensively by various national and local news agencies. Additionally, the case was discussed at length in multiple true crime YouTube videos, and featured in a segment of 2020, where Sarah Staud was interviewed in recovery from her poisoning. Thank you for joining me for tonight's episode of The Grim Files. The Staud family murders are a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in even the most familiar of places, within the walls of a family, where trust should be absolute. Diane and Rachel Staud's actions shattered their own family, leaving behind a trail of devastation and unimaginable betrayal. Though justice has been served, the scars left by their crimes are lasting. For Sarah Staud, a survivor in every sense of the word, the road to recovery is long and painful, but she continues to rebuild her life, determined to find strength in the face of unspeakable loss. The case of the Staud family serves as a stark warning that evil can take root in the most unexpected of places, and that no one is truly beyond the reach of justice. We hope that through these stories, we bring awareness to the victims, and in some way, honor their memory by ensuring their stories are told. I'll be back soon with another case that will haunt your thoughts long after the episode ends. Until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and never forget that sometimes, the darkest secrets lie just behind the doors we trust the most. Thank you for watching The Grim Files.